Hello and welcome to GameSack. We're talking about games that really seem to push the hardware limits of the consoles that they're on.
We've got 10 really good examples to show you here.
Well, actually 11.
We have 11 really good examples to show you here.
Yeah.
Some of them are really cool, others not so fun to play, but they still show what the developers were able to do for these systems.
Absolutely. And as always, well, not as always, but this time anyway, I've got the first game, so let's just get right to it.
Okay.
Ah yes, Red Zone on the Genesis. I mean, how could this episode not have Red Zone in it? Developed by Xerox and published by Time Warner Interactive in 1994, this game was basically made for no other reason than to push the Genesis. In fact, the first screen you see in the game even brags about what it does. As for the game itself, mostly you'll find yourself flying around in a helicopter, blowing things up and stuff like that. This part of the game rotates the screen 360 degrees and you can fly in any direction you want. Yeah, it looks kinda chunky, but it's still pretty cool. Sometimes the controls in this part seem a bit sluggish, but it's still quite playable. You have several different missile types and you can also fire your machine gun. All of your ammunition will run out, so be careful on that trigger there, cowboy. At some points you'll land and get some information or an item from people who just happen to be camped out in a war zone. You'll also have a few escort missions in this mode where you need to protect the vehicle and the people that are traveling on it. But sometimes you'll get to land and run inside the buildings. This right here is my favorite part of the game. There's a cool sense of depth with the scrolling, and I really like how you can see all the sides of the walls as you run around. Not only that, but sometimes you can even see a floor below and even jump down to it and run around. Way cool. These indoor missions are pretty fun, but like the helicopter scenes, they're also pretty tough. Some of the levels can be fairly long, going up and down elevators and all over the place. If you die, you have to start all the way back at the beginning of the building, but fortunately all of the enemies that you've killed stay dead, and any switches you've moved or hidden obstacles that you've uncovered also stay that way. The control here may not be the greatest thing in the world, but it's fine, it's more than adequate. The music is by Jesper Kyd, who's done the music for a bunch of Assassin's Creed, Borderlands, and Hitman games and stuff like that. Most people love or hate the music here, and I'll say that it's definitely an acquired taste. I really do like the music when you're in the buildings running around on foot, and all of the music makes great use of stereo separation. Overall, graphic effects aside, this is actually a pretty interesting game and I enjoy playing it. It's really fun to see what a developer could do with the hardware on an actual release title. Check it out. I mean, you might as well. It only goes for $10 or slightly more complete.
Street Fighter Alpha 2 came to the Super Nintendo in 1996. For some odd reason, Capcom went straight to Alpha 2 and left Alpha 1 behind. And that's fine by me, as I like the character roster much more in Alpha 2. If you've played this game on the Saturn, PlayStation, or arcade, then you fully well know that there is no way this game should be able to run on the Super Nintendo without it exploding. The good news is that it does, and your Super Nintendo won't explode! The bad news is that it has suffered a bit on the port. But the fact that the game is running says quite a lot. All characters are represented, and even Chun-Li with a code. You can play arcade and versus mode, but taken out was training mode and survival mode. Once you get going and select your fighter, it takes you to the stage for your first round battle. The announcer starts round 1 and then there's a pause. At first I was like, did the game just freeze? What the hell? After a couple of seconds, the battle begins. So, believe it or not, the game pauses before each battle to load all the sounds. It uses a special chip called the SDD1, which decompresses graphics data on the fly. The compression ratio is about 2:1 with this chip, so that means this 32 meg card is actually closer to 64 mega power. Man, why do I keep hearing that echo when I say that? That's Joe's thing. Anyway, the result is nice, as you can see. Each fighter has a lot of smooth animation. The pause before a fight isn't really too horrible, all things considered. It gives you just enough time to take a quick sip of beer. Yes, I'm looking at the positive side of this. The backgrounds are all intact and look great, but they're missing lots of animation. Let's check out Dalsim's stage. The elephants barely flap an ear and his wife just stands there on the Super Nintendo version, while on the Saturn, the elephants have more animation and his wife is visibly distraught by the beating I'm giving her husband. The music has taken a noticeable hit from the other versions as well. It has a unique charm to it, but I'd take the CD tunes any day. I'm a fan of the Super Nintendo controllers, so to me this game controls really well. This was a noble effort by Capcom to put this game on the system knowing its limitations. Well, they did it, and the system handles it well enough even though it gets absurdly hot and the plastic almost melts. This is still a good port to play, and it doesn't seem like they gimped it so much that it feels cheap.
Street Fighter 03 for the Saturn was only released in Japan. This is called Street Fighter Alpha 3 over in the US for the systems it did come out on. This just may be the definitive version of this game on home consoles. It uses the 4 MB RAM expansion cartridge to store most, if not all, of the frames of animation from the arcade. And from what I've read, it's the only console port at the time to be able to claim this. That's right, it even has a bit more animation than the Dreamcast port. Speaking of which, this game was actually released after the Dreamcast version. As a fighting game, it's completely badass. The action is super fast and it'll really put your skills to the test. Well, at least it did for me. It often makes my thumb feel like jelly after a match, but you know what? I don't mind, it's just so damn fun. You start off being able to select from 33 characters including Evil Ryu and Evil Guile, I think is in there somewhere. You can select from 3 different fighting styles, Xism, Zism, and Vism. Xism is based on the Street Fighter Alpha style, Zism is like Street Fighter Alpha 2, and Vism is more like Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. So which do I like best? I honestly don't know, as I'm not the world's best Street Fighter player or anything like that, so they're all pretty much equally fun to me. And this game is super fun with lots of different stages to fight through. It doesn't become boring, and I never find myself wishing that the last stage would just get here already like I do with some other fighting games. The 2D graphics are amazing, and they certainly should be on the Saturn. Super bright colors, and of course the animation is awesome, as I've already mentioned. The only thing that it doesn't have are the polygons that the PlayStation version supposedly has for some silly reason, but I haven't played that particular version yet. The load times are quick and the control is flawless, especially with the Saturn controller. Oh, and the music absolutely rocks, and it really helps drive up the intensity of the game. The announcer is also overly excited, and that raises my excitement too, because I like that I'm excited that he's excited. I don't know.
Go for it, man!
Also, this version has a dramatic battle mode where you fight against all of the characters with the CPU helper. Or you can fight against 2 CPU fighters simultaneously. You can only control the player that you pick, you can't switch to the other one or anything, but it is still pretty fun. What a fantastic late release for Saturn owners in Japan. If only Saturn owners everywhere else were so lucky. So don't play that poopy Street Fighter Alpha 2 on the Super Nintendo, play this on the Saturn instead.
Shantae for the Game Boy Color was released in 2002, which was at the very end of the system's life. The Game Boy Advance was released in 2001, so this gives you an idea of how late the game came to the market. This is the story of Shantae and her struggle to get a steam engine back from a female pirate called Risky Boots. It's not often you get to play a game where you take control of a girl and have to battle another female who is the final boss. For a Game Boy Color game, this game is huge. You'll be traveling through many lands in your quest. I really like how everything is set up. You have a town that's your hub where you heal, buy items, and get information all in a really unique third-person style. I like this, and it should be used more often by game designers. When you leave town through a gate, you can go to the left or right depending on which direction your quest lies. Let's say you're making your way to Watertown. Along the way, you'll go through fields and forests until you get to your goal. It really adds a nice sense of depth to the game instead of just showing up at your destination. Each area is loaded with platforming and enemies to kill. Shantae uses her hair as a weapon. Apparently she doesn't wash it very much because it's lethal. But I'm the last person who should be talking about hair. So Shantae is a half genie, and as everyone knows, genies like to dance. She'll meet other genies along the way which will teach her dances that will actually let her transform into other things. Like this monkey which has the ability to climb walls, letting you access new areas. Sadly, that's all she's good for because she can't fight. Turning Shantae into other forms is interesting because it kind of turns into a rhythm game where you must input controls to the beat of music. It's not a hard thing to do, it's actually kind of amusing. As I was playing and looking at how nice the graphics are, I had to remind myself that this is a Game Boy Color game and not a Game Boy Advance game. The smoothness in Shantae's animation is amazing. The effects of turning day into night and night into day is really something considering the handheld it was made for. Even the music is much better than the majority of the games you'll find on the portable. Hell, it even sounds better than a lot of games on the Advance. This game had a production run of 15,000 copies and was released only in North America. Finding a copy for a decent price is going to be very hard, but it's worth it to keep looking as this is one great game for the Game Boy Color.
Mega Turrican for the Genesis is a pretty cool game by Factor 5. This is known as Turrican 3 on the Amiga, even though it was made first on the Genesis. You play as a cyborg guy in a run-and-gun style of game. You shoot open boxes that are lying around for weapons, power-ups, and other goodies like that. You also have a plasma rope which can lasso you up to higher places. Using this takes a bit of getting used to, but once you do, it's not too bad. You can also turn into a ball and leave bombs on the ground, very similar to Metroid. Of course, the main problem with the Turrican series is that you can't shoot upwards, and you want to so bad. So very, very badly. But nope, your arm just doesn't bend in that direction. Unless, of course, you're holding the lasso. What the hell? Come on, I want to shoot up. So it's a good game, but it's not necessarily a great game. But this episode is about games that push the limit, not about which games are the best games ever. And this game does quite a lot on the Genesis for the time, and it doesn't even have an excessive amount of memory helping it or anything, only 8 megs. Hell, even the box tells you that it pushes the system's capabilities to its limits. You've got nice, detailed graphics with good parallax scrolling. You've got some cool scaling of certain enemies. Some enemies even have rotation, and it looks great. Hell, it even does that thing that the Super Nintendo loves to do where the graphics get all blocky and low resolution. Why don't games do this anymore? It's only like the best effect ever. I kid, I'm kidding. It's actually one of my least favorite effects, and I don't think it's very impressive. But still, it's here. There's even some creepy stretching during the alien stage as well. This stage pisses me off, by the way. All of the other stages up to this point are fairly short and full of fast action, but this one sure isn't. You have to take your sweet-ass time using the rope to work your way towards the exit. Once you get there, you find yourself on top of a train-like thing trying to stay alive while still fighting aliens. Get past that and you're back in the alien caverns again. Anyway, the control works most of the time, but often I felt that the game just wasn't reacting fast enough. This usually had to do with detaching my plasma rope from a surface while also trying to defend myself from enemies. The game is fun, but it's Turrican. I mean, how great can it really be? You still fight a giant hand, but at least it has some variety and some really nice aesthetics. Speaking of which, the music is fantastic. It features many of the same tunes by Chris Hulsbeck that you may have heard in the Super Nintendo versions, but everything sounds absolutely fantastic here. No twangy, thin, poorly programmed FM, no muffled staccato instruments with excessive reverb, just pure audio goodness. Believe it or not, this game almost went unreleased until Data East picked it up. It was also never released in Japan. It's definitely a game that's worth having.
Are we at the halfway point already?
Apparently we are.
Holy crap, this episode's going by quickly.
Yeah.
Oh man, I played some really awesome games so far, and the ones that you've played aren't too shabby either, Chip.
Yeah, I was surprised you didn't mention it. The Enchante, when they're like in the indoor levels, sometimes it has the multi-layer scrolling, which I thought was pretty cool.
Well, yeah, that really is cool. I mean, there's so much stuff going on in that game that I probably just failed to notice it.
I don't really think you noticed stuff like that. Anyway, we've got more games to cover, so you've got the next one, so let's just get right onto it.
All right. Gran Turismo 2 for the PlayStation was released in 1999. There were over 9.3 million copies of this game sold worldwide, so if you haven't played a Gran Turismo game, then where the hell have you been? As you know, Gran Turismo 2 is a simulation racing game. The game comes on 2 discs. The first disc is titled Simulation Mode, and the second disc is titled Arcade Mode. I really got my hopes up for the arcade mode disc because I really like arcade racing games. And when I say arcade style racing games, I mean games that let you race at ludicrous speeds, power slide around corners, and let you race on fun imaginary tracks. Check out our old video on Outrun, as that is probably the best arcade style racer ever. Anyways, when I popped in the arcade disc and started playing, I was fairly sad. The only arcade thing about this disc is that you can pick your car and what license you want to race and what track. Once you start racing, it's back to the same old boring simulation style racing. Nothing fun or exciting happened, so I didn't play it for very long. The simulation disc is just that. It's a fairly deep simulation mode where you buy your cars. And to start out, you don't have much money, so you have to buy a used car. Sweet! After that, you can start earning your B-class license by doing super fun things like going slightly fast and then stopping after going 1,000 yards. Somebody, please splash water in my face because I'm about to faint from all this excitement. After you pass 10 tests, you get your B license and you can enter races with your new used car. This is where you earn money to buy more cars for your garage. After a couple of hours of play, you might be able to buy a new car. Something real sporty like a Toyota sedan family car. Awesome. Do you see why I don't like simulation games like this? They're very slow to get anywhere, and I would rather just jump into a fantasy racing world and have lots of fun. This game to me just isn't fun. But the main reason I'm talking about Gran Turismo 2 is that the game really pushed the PlayStation to its limits. All the car models look really nice with lots of detail true to the real deal. They even added a nice reflection effect to the car so that it looks like the real world around is reflecting off the windows and paint. It's not accurate, but it does look believable. Racing with all these highly detailed cars causes no slowdown that I've seen. After each race is over, you can watch a fairly entertaining replay video of your race that's done with in-game graphics, and it all looks really cool with multiple camera angles. As boring as this game is for me, I still like how the game looks and how smoothly it runs. I admire Polyphony Digital for what they've accomplished with this game, even though it's not a game I really enjoy playing.
Cosmic Epsilon for the Famicom is a game by Asmic that kinda plays like Space Harrier. Of course, that right there alone warrants me giving the game a try. You fly forward into the screen and blast down enemies, just like Space Harrier. But what's really cool about this one is the movement of the floor. It may not seem like that much these days, but for the NES, it's pretty damned impressive. It's actually like a primitive Mode 7. The perspective and the movement are both correct, and you really don't see that often, even in 16-bit games. Well, except for the aforementioned Mode 7 on the Super Nintendo. The enemies all move around quickly and smoothly as well. This game uses an MMC3. Basically, this chip allows up to 4 megabits in overall size and slightly more RAM. However, this game is only 3 megs. Now, while the graphics are really impressive for the time, the gameplay really isn't. It's nowhere near as good as Space Harrier, and it's really easy to get hit and lose a life because you can't tell how close enemy fire is to you. In fact, sometimes I even die without ever seeing what hit me. Often you'll transform into a spaceship and fly above the planet and do battle there. These stages aren't that impressive and are actually kind of boring. Not that the other stages are exploding with fun or anything. A lot of the music sounds like it's coming from the Sega Master System with that distinct, high-pitched PSG type of sound. This is an interesting game, but I can only recommend it for the graphical effects. I can totally understand why it was never released here. Okay, this review is fairly short, so let's take a quick look at another NES game. That's right, Sesame Street Countdown. In this game, you guide the count and you need to find all the numbers he tells you to find. So if you pick 7, you gotta find everything that's 7. Now, why the hell am I talking about this game? Well, honestly, because the quality of the digitized voices here are amazing.
Got it!
Granted, he's kinda slow piecing his sentences together, but the playback quality is second to none on an 8-bit system.
Find 4.
Sometimes you go into bonus areas to find numbers. Here, I try to put 7 things in the barrel since I'm after all things 7.
No, that's 3.
Crap, I was supposed to have 7 things in a glass instead of in the barrel? Now I feel like an idiot. What's cool about this game is that I learned to count to 10, which is this much more than Dave can count to. So have you ever heard voice quality this good or better in an 8-bit game? Let me know, because I want to hear them too.
That's 8. Find 7. 2.
Summer Carnival 92 Rekka is a shooter for the Famicom that was made for a competition in the year of 1992. Duh. As I booted up this game, I was thinking that being on the Famicom it would be pretty tame. I'm used to shooters on this system only having a handful of enemies on screen at best and maybe 1 or 2 power-ups with tons of slowdown. Then I went and hit start and was pretty much blown right out of my chair. It only takes a couple of seconds of gameplay before you realize that something amazing is happening here. Right from the beginning of the game, enemies come streaming at you. It's a relentless armada of ships all hell-bent on killing you basically by running into you or creating enough confusion so that you'll run into them. Luckily, your ship can be powered up. There is no lack of power-up icons, and it seems that they're constantly all over the screen. It's the type of icon that flashes different letters letting you know what weapon you'll gain from picking it up. So as you're killing and evading hundreds of enemy ships, you're also watching this icon cycle through its letters, just waiting for the one you want. Most of the weapons are good, and they can all be powered up by collecting more of the same letter. There are other icons that appear as well. One is a secondary weapon that actually just stays really close to your ship. I'm guessing that it's supposed to be a shield of some sort. It didn't work well for me, and I died a lot. Then finally, there are some bland blue icons that just give you points. If you're daring enough and stop firing your primary shot, it will build up after 5 seconds or so and you can unleash a bomb that will devastate a lot of enemies in a small area. The problem is that there's so many waves of enemies coming at you that you have no time to build this thing up. The only time I found it really useful is when I was fighting a boss. As the boss appeared on screen, I was charging that thing up and it was great for the first couple of hits. The game is very addictive and I found myself always wanting to try harder and get further, but it's just insane. At least it has some enjoyable music as I lay waste to lots of enemies and it adds an extra level to the gameplay. Supposedly it can play 4 samples at one time. I still can't believe that the Famicom was able to handle so many sprites and effects on screen all the time without any slowdown. There is a bit of sprite flicker here and there, but it's just an amazing accomplishment by the game developers.
Alien Soldier on the Mega Drive is a run-and-gun game from Treasure. It was never released in North America for the Genesis, unfortunately. This really is the action game to end all action games. It even warns you how much it pushes the system on the title screen. Visual shock, speed shock, sound shock. Now is the time to the 68,000 Heart on Fire. Hell yeah, you know it's gonna be good. Anyway, the story is about a human who obtained supremacy over a Earth and eventually planned to assassinate Epsilon Eagle, but Tiger was much confused, so the boy converted his body into Epsilon who, hell, I don't know what the hell's going on here. You just need to know that you're playing as the Birdman and saving the entire human race, and probably the bird race too. This really is a boss rush game mainly. It almost seems like there's more bosses than regular enemies. There are 25 stages in all. It's a tough game, and you'll likely hate it initially because it doesn't give you much of a chance if you don't know what you're doing. But once you do figure things out, you are good to go. There's unlimited continues and a password feature, so you can keep trying until you get past the stage that's giving you trouble. At least on super easy mode, and you only have super easy and super hard to choose from. There's no super normal difficulty. At the beginning of each game, you select 4 out of the 6 available weapons to take with you, and you can choose one of over 20 different menu types for whatever reason. But the weapons do not have unlimited ammo. Some weapons, like this fire blaster thing, run out of juice really quick, but it's also one of the strongest weapons. You can obtain more power for your weapons if you pick up an icon that matches the one you're currently using. But watch out, if you pick up the wrong icon, your weapon that you're using will turn into that one. You can shoot the weapon icon so that they become the weapon you're using, so you don't have to wait around for them to cycle. While the game initially feels kind of similar to Gunstar Heroes, it certainly doesn't control as well, and your character's giant size does not help things either. That said, it's certainly not horrible, and you can change the shot mode on the fly so that you can move while shooting, or you can lock yourself in place if that's what you want. You can jump and hover, and sometimes this is needed to stay out of harm's way. You can even walk on ceilings. But the move that you need to master right away is the dash. This lets you bolt your ass to the other side of the screen through enemies without taking any damage. If you don't do this, I'd be surprised if you could even get past stage 1 or 2 intact. When your life is full, this move even becomes an attack. Another thing to be aware of is that some weapons don't really work against many of the bosses. But yeah, this game plays super fast and rarely ever has any slowdown. There's almost always a ton of action going on the screen. The graphics are drawn really well and some of the bosses can look pretty bizarre. There's also lots of cool effects in the game for your eyeballs to enjoy. The sound is also really good. The music sounds a lot like Gunstar Heroes, and that's not a bad thing. It even pays homage to that game by lifting a tune from it. And is it paying homage to Contra Hardcore here? It kinda looks like one of the characters. This is another very technically impressive game, but we'll save that one for next time. Everything about Alien Soldier is pretty damn kick-ass. I don't know why it never came out here in North America, but I'll just assume that Sega management was being their normal, stupid selves. In order to play this game, you'll need a Japanese Mega Drive or a Genesis with a region switch, or you might be able to bypass the region lockout with the Game Genie. Check it out, you won't be playing anything like this on any other 16-bit system. Only the Genesis can the 68,000 Heart on Fire.
Batman Revenge of the Joker on the NES is a really fun action platformer that came out in 1991. I was very surprised at what I saw when I booted up this game and started playing. At first glance, you might find yourself wondering if this is actually the NES. It really almost looks like an early 16-bit title. Just look at the first level. 4 layers of parallax scrolling. You didn't often see this kind of stuff on the NES. It's very nice and really gives this level a lot of depth. This game uses a custom Sunsoft chip that's also in Gremlins 2 and Mr. Gimmick, though the chip doesn't have the extra audio channel that Gimmick does. The game boasts large character and enemy sprites with little to no slowdown, and they look great. Speaking of looking great, check out the great use of color in this game. Everything has a very rich feel to it, with lots of dark areas contrasted by really bright colors. This is one of the cleanest looking games I've ever seen on the NES. Granted, I'm playing it with S-Video here, but it truly is amazing to watch this game running on my NES. So besides the technical achievements, there's also a gameplay side. For the most part, the game plays very well. Batman controls well, but not perfect. I found one little animation that drove me a bit nuts. You see, when you want Batman to stop after walking, he doesn't stop on a dime. In fact, he does this little sliding stop and it can get you into trouble, and a lot of times you'll even die because of it. Like here, where I was just trying to get to the edge of this pit. Other than that, I really don't have any more complaints about this game. The levels are all laid out really well, and the platforming is fun and can be challenging at times. There's a few cheap spots, like having to jump across this broken bridge and an enemy's just waiting off screen to kill you. Oh well, thanks to unlimited continues, I'm not really worried about it. Batman can only use one weapon at a time, but he has several weapons he can choose from by collecting icons. You pick your desired weapon by shooting the weapon icon. Don't wait too long to choose because it only stays there for what seems like 5 seconds or so. Each weapon can have a powered up shot by holding down the shot button. In my opinion, the weapon that corresponds with the letter C is the best. The music is definitely Sunsoft, and you know right away that's usually a good thing. From the moment I heard it in the first level, it just had that trademark Sunsoft sound and feel to it. It's not their best soundtrack, but it's strong enough to hold its own. All in all, this is a great game by Sunsoft and really a testament to what the NES was capable of.
And there you go, 11 amazing games that you would have never thought possible had you bought these consoles when they first came out. But they are possible! They are! We showed them! They're good games, well, most of them.
Don't ever touch me again. Anyways,
promise that.
those are 11 totally awesome games like Joe said. You know, a lot of them were fun to play, some of them not so much, but at least we were able to see what the developers were capable of.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting. Like, I think most of yours came out towards the end of the system's life.
Yeah, I'd say almost all of them.
Yeah, and well, I think Mega Turrican came out kind of in the middle of the Genesis's life. I don't know when the NES games I talked about really came out.
Yeah.
But anyway, what games do you think push some consoles? What should we look at the next time?
Yeah, there's tons of ideas, I'm sure. So.
Yeah, and let us know. And in the meantime, thank you for watching GameSec.
Alright Joe, you stupid Sega fanboy, I'm here to prove to you that the Super Nintendo is just as fast as the Genesis in blast processing.
Yeah.
That's just a myth. Check this out.
That's Sonic the Hedgehog! How is the Super Nintendo doing that?
It's doing it, man. Blast processing is just a myth. The Super Nintendo's running this just as fast, if not even faster than Sega.
Well, you think that's awesome? The Genesis can do anything and everything that the Super Nintendo can. Check this out.
What is that? Gradius 3?
You bet it is. And it's running every bit as slow as it does on the Super Nintendo, if not even slower.
That is awesome. So slow.